Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our series. It is the Pedagogy for Me, and tonight's conversation centers all around mastering the special education Texas Exam 161. But before you log off, I want to say, stick with me because modification and accommodations is something that many educators need clarification on. And so we're going to be sharing that information tonight, hoping that it brings that clarification for you, but also spotlighting the special education K through 12 exam that we offer insight on and help educators to pass. So again, thank you for being present. And as always, let's go ahead and get into it. Our agenda is for us to understand what a modification is and how it's different from accommodations. As noted on the key points that we're going to discuss, we're really going to dive into the difference between the two, effective uses, how it impacts their daily work and their assignments, and then toward the end, I'm going to give you a few scenarios to help you to test your understanding and to make sure that you know the difference between the two. In 161, Texas Exam, Competency 01 talks about understanding the individuals with disabilities. So you as a special education teacher, and I would dare to say as a teacher, period, who may have students with special education needs in your classroom, must understand and apply the knowledge of the characteristics and the needs of students with disabilities. And so that understanding means that I have to know the definition. So a modification. This is a TEA definition, our Texas Education Agency, which helps us to keep in line the TEK's objectives and understanding of what we are teaching. Defines it as a change to the curriculum or instruction that affects the content or the level of difficulty a student is expected to master. That is a modification. And just for simplicity, it means that a student is not expected to achieve the same learning goals as their peers. And I'll talk to you about a little bit later about how that comes to part. I'm not going to go deep into it, but I am going to mention it because it warrants the conversation. So who actually determines these students' needs? Okay, we as a collaborative group, we have to focus on the objectives and the goals for our students. Building an IEP is noted on the special education department, but it should be a team effort. Coming up with effective practices that best helps the students and allows them to be successful, okay? Taking the data that has been given and building an individualized plan for the students' success as they are being educated. And so as the picture denotes, all hands are on deck to make sure that this is done properly, with fidelity, and carefully. So I'm going to actually skip this one and come back to it because I want to talk about accommodations first. And then we get to what is an accommodation. TEA defines it as changes in materials or procedures that enables a student to participate meaningfully in learning and testing. And I want to state that an accommodation is intended to reduce or even eliminate the effects of the disability, but is not to change said learning goals that the student has to meet the measure in order to be successful at their current grade level. So, what are the key differences? How do we seal this deal? What makes this understandable? I'd like to relate it to a cake. When a person is making a cake, if it is a modification, I'm changing the ingredients. I may be taking out the flour, putting in something else that would make it a binder. When I am making a cake and I am accommodating, I might simply be using a fancy pan, a different kind of mixer, but I am not changing the ingredients of that cake. So the changes and knowing which one is which one, a change to an ingredients again is the modification portion of it. A change to adding in this fancy mixer is a accommodation. And I hope I said that right. So I'll repeat it because I feel like I um, crisscrossed it. If I change the ingredients, it is a modification. That change to the curriculum for the student is a modification. If I'm only enhancing and removing some of the barriers in order for the student to still perform at the same level and complete the assignments that are needed, it is an accommodation. And then a lot of times we have this back and forth about what the impact is. When a student is taking an assessment, it is important for us, and also daily work, let me put that in. It is important for us to know when it is necessary to modify and accommodate. And unfortunately, there's no one size fits all. There's no answer for everybody blanket across the page. Each child is different. Each situation is different. And it may be that they need accommodations, modifications in one subject, but they don't need it in another subject. So what I will say is that this is where that ARD committee comes in. This body of professionals, along with family, community, come together to make this best plan for the student if they are a special ed student. If they're receiving 504 services or they have other disabilities, there then can be accommodations. And because I'm sticking today solely to special education, I won't go too deep into that. So again, no one size does not fit all. The impact will be necessary to denote in their individualized plan if they're going to have said modifications or accommodations to their work. I didn't list the differences between the tools that would be used for accommodation. And I probably will through a little bit later. But for right now, if I'm looking to assess the student, they have a disability that is cognitively impairing some of the things that they're able to do. This committee comes together to make the best decision. And I won't say it's to modify or to accommodate, but I will give us some examples at the end. So let's test some of that knowledge. Let's make sure that we understand. A student with significant cognitive disabilities is working to identify main ideas from a simplified paragraph, while classmates are analyzing complex literary themes. I'm going to give you a moment to decide, is this a modification or is this an accommodation? And with this reminder, I'm going to say, you have to ask yourself some questions to be able to identify it. But if you've asked yourself to looking at the objective here, I understand that this is a modification to the assignment. Example number 2. A student with ADHD takes a test in a separate, quiet room, but completes all of the same questions as peers. I'll give you a moment to decide whether this is a modification or accommodation. Again, has there been any changes to said students' necessity to complete the assignment? No. This is an accommodation, removing a barrier for the student so that they can be successful on the exam. So, things to think about, things to ask yourself. When you're making these deliberations for your students, whether to accommodate, which accommodations can be done for a variety of students, or to modify, which must be listed in their IEP. It cannot be something that you decide upon your own. It has to be in their individualized education plan. 2 questions I leave you with. Can the student achieve the same standards as their peers with support? And again, does the student's IEP specifically talk about modifications to the curriculum? If the answers are yes, then that means that you're allowed. If the answers are no, then we have to make certain that we're following the information. I talked last week about laws and ethical standards and practices. There are laws that protect our special ed students and our students as a whole. Again, I'm not going to jump into that tonight, but I am going to say that it's important for us to understand that in accommodation, we are not changing what the students are being measured. Their scores are going to be treated as the same as their peers. But in modification, we are changing what's measured. And they will receive different grading standards than normal, or let me not say normal, bad choice of words, than what they actually need and what's their least restrictive environment and what they need in order to be successful. Again, I am appreciative always of you being able to watch and to tune in to our conversations that we have. Please feel free to leave a comment or question in the notes here. We can be reached by email and our website. We'd love it if you would subscribe and set up notifications for when we drop different information to help you to be successful in your journey as an educator, as well as to be able to complete your tests that you need. I'll be sure to add in some accommodations below in the show notes. Things like large print, repeated instruction, extended time. And I'll list a few more so that there's a clarification about the two. Again, thank you so much for your time. Have a great evening.